What a headshot! What a head!
How's it guys, this is Dayvy, FPL, and welcome back to the Fantasy Premier League video here on my channel. Now in this video I'll be taking you through my updated draft for upcoming Game Week 1. Now don't worry, we won't be going over updated drafts every second day of the preseason. The reason I'm actually doing this is because of our positional price change mistake video. Go check that video out if you guys haven't, it's going to be in the description. But a few talking points have arisen from that video and therefore I've updated my draft. Now the next series of videos is going to be kind of diving deep into those positional reviews, the goalkeepers, defenders, midfielders, and finally forwards. And then after that video, I think the draft is going to be cementing itself quite solidly. But as always, anything can change in preseason. So as the preseason friendly games do go on, we have some signings that haven't even taken place that might shake things up. Tons of days still to happen before Game Week 1, but this is going to be my team as of now, and it hasn't really changed since making that video. So if you guys want to see what my updated draft looks like, while you guys are at it, in the comments down below, what's your latest draft looking like, and is it any different to mine? But sit back, relax, and let's get into this draft video. So going over my updated draft, if you guys haven't seen my first draft, I guess you guys can just stop this video, go watch that one, but otherwise let's just crack on to this one. The first thing I want to say is I don't really like it as much as my first draft because I do have 0.5 left in the bank, and that's kind of a crime when making your first draft. You always want that 0.0. But honestly, I couldn't see anywhere in this team that I needed to make an upgrade. I wanted to keep the bench as cheap as possible to be realistic, but if I had 0.5, I probably would just upgrade one of my bench positions. So maybe you guys can see where in this team you would use that 0.5. Comment it down below and help me out, as I couldn't see any place to do an upgrade. I also want to clarify that I'm not showing my rank from last season because I was disappointed. It's just it wasn't one of my top ranks. At the end of the day, I finished overall 43k. Just had some comments over the previous video that I haven't been showing it, but it's just because it wasn't one of my better ranks. It was a pretty average season. Let's hope that this season can be an absolute cracker, and if you guys have seen my Game Week history, I'll actually put it in the description below. This season is on cue with the pattern and should be an absolute banger of a season. So let's see how that Game Week 1 team that's going to be a banger of a season starts us off. I'm going to go over the goalkeepers first because there's a few talking points. I've kept it the same and I've gone for Keller and the backup from Brentford. Now the major talking point is the fact that Brentford have lost so many players. They could also lose Visa up front. I guess that doesn't really mean much for Keller and goal, but the spine of that team has been kind of ripped apart. So does that make Keller a better or worse option? I think this is actually kind of a double-edged sword. It could actually make them worse defensively and could make Keller better because he might be making more saves. Now remember, with your 4.5, you actually want your goalkeeper to be making a few saves, as that's really where the potential of these cheaper goalkeepers does come in and where they can get those bonus points. So even though Brentford's defense might be worse, Keller might actually be a better goalkeeper. But obviously you still want some clean sheets, so I might have to consider this after I see their preseason friendly games. At the moment though, I don't really see a 4.5 that really stands out to me, and therefore I'm going to be going for the ex-Liverpool man. I saw Trafford just join Man City, but unfortunately Edison looks like staying, otherwise he would be an absolute lock at 5.0. Now yes, I could spend some more money, that 0.5 in the bank, to go for a 5.0, but you guys know me, always love to go for a cheaper goalkeeper. Now the next talking point is actually going to be on the bench. Now the bench usually is the most boring part of any draft, but Game Week 1 this season might actually be quite interesting with that bench boost potential. So if you guys don't know, you probably do, but we're going to be getting double chips this Premier League season. One set in the first half and one set in the second half. So yes, 2 bench boosts. I guess what could be worse than the stress of having to use the bench boost twice a season, and that's why using it in Game Week 1 actually might be quite advantageous. Now with the bench boost, it does require quite a lot of planning to get a very strong bench, and that's why there's ways to negate that planning, mainly using a chip. So if you guys have been watching me for the past few seasons, you know I love the old bench boost plus wildcard combination, using the wildcard first and then bench boosting afterwards. You can use it vice versa, whatever way you please, but basically what I want to say is we are on a wildcard at the current moment, unlimited transfers heading into Game Week 1. So a real strategy is actually to just use the bench boost in Game Week 1. We have the information of preseason friendlies and we have the wildcard unlimited transfers. And if you guys want a wildcard quite early on in the season, you don't have to carry that much value on your bench. Now, if you did this last season, you might have had a few surprises. For example, Barco from Brighton. Everyone thought that he was going to be playing and he ended up not playing. So that could happen this season, and therefore there is some risk attached to it. Now, I'm pretty open to actually using the bench boost in Game Week 1, but I'm not locked in. I don't think anyone is locked in on the Game Week 1 bench boost, just because we don't have that information of those preseason friendlies yet. We don't even know if these budget options are going to be playable in Game Week 1, and therefore I'm open to the bench boost, but I'm not going to lock it in until those preseason friendlies, at least the majority of them, are completed. So having said that, let's now go on to my bench, and I've spoken about kind of keeping it as cheap as possible. It's not the most cheap bench, but I've got Aaron Wan-Bissaka at 4.5. I just do like him as my 4.5 defender of choice. Now, Konza could have been here, but if you guys saw the video, his defensive contributions aren't exactly there. And as a sort of defensive fullback, Aaron Wan-Bissaka has that potential. Now, you guys go even more defensive contribution heavy and go for someone like a centre-back from a cheaper team that racks them up. And we'll discuss that in our positional reviews coming up shortly this week. So I guess Wan-Bissaka could almost be a placeholder here as we do get clarity over the preseason friendlies. But if you don't mind him and could actually play him in Game Week 1 against Sunderland. Now, last two bench options are gone for the double up of Burnley with Barnes as well as Esteve. The 4.0 defender does look pretty nailed after signing a new contract this week. In terms of 4.5 forwards, unfortunately at the moment there's no playable option, and therefore I've gone for the throwback of Ashley Barnes. And therefore if I do want a bench boost, the bench is going to need some work or some budget added to it to make it viable. At the moment, don't even know if there's a 4.0 playable goalkeeper that could be an absolute game changer. And that's why I said I'm open to the bench boost, but I'm not going to lock it in. But let's go on to that starting 11, and we will be going in kind of sequential order, defenders to forwards, and that's just because the forwards at the moment are my most kind of unknown position. The defense and the midfield are looking a little bit more locked in. Now, you've probably seen him on the thumbnail. It's going to be Virgil van Dijk. I've changed from Kerkez to van Dijk because of those defensive contributions. I'm not saying that van Dijk will be getting them every single week, but I do back the centre-back for more minutes. I don't think Kerkez will be rotated as much. Maybe even Frimpong gets the minutes. I just feel like Virgil van Dijk has that chance of defensive contributions and should hopefully score more headers this season. This could change though. You guys know how I do love a fullback in my FPL team, so let's see how the preseason does progress. Now, my next player, Gabriel, another sort of centre-back from a top team that might not be getting his defensive contributions. It's almost like Keller, a worse defense means more saves. The same with these defenders, the worse defenses probably equal more defensive contributions. I just can't go without an Arsenal defender at the moment. I might actually have to change this around when I do that defensive kind of review. But Gabriel at the moment is my favourite Arsenal defender. Now, I could have gone for a Guardiola or someone like an Aït-Nouri, but at the moment, I just want to see how Man City are going to be shaping up. And that's why my third defender is actually going to be Murillo from Nottingham Forest. So we've gone full DEFCON here with Murillo. He's an absolute giant in terms of those kind of interceptions, blocks, clearances, all that good stuff. Comes in more expensive at 5.5, but I do prefer him over someone like a Neco Williams, unless you want to upgrade another position. I kind of had one extra mil in the bank and I had Neco Williams in the slot. I decided to spend the 0.5 instead of another upgrade, but that's a variation that you guys could also go for. So yes, big at the back might be back, but I think it's worth the shot with these defensive contributions. No Everton defenders at the moment. I just want to see if Tarkowski's back to full fitness. Then our midfielders, there's kind of two locked in positions. The first one, Mo Salah, and the second one, Cole Palmer. I don't think I have to talk much about these two, as they are in most people's kind of drafts. The only thing about Salah might be the fact, with all these new signings that Liverpool are making, how's that going to affect Salah and his position? Let's see how this preseason friendlies do progress, but I'm still expecting the Egyptian to be absolute gold. Cole Palmer, some new additions as well, but he's going to be consistent, look better in the Club World Cup than he was last season. Managed to keep his price tag. Let's see if he can prove that he's going to be worth the value. So these two are pretty locked in. It's kind of the last positions. You'll notice that I've gone for a 3-5-2 draft. So yes, I've shaken it up from the normal 3-4-3. And my next player is not going to be Florian Wirtz. It's actually Bruno Fernandes. So Bruno Fernandes, I know there's always a lot of comments about my pronunciation. You guys can go with whatever one that you want. But Bruno does offer some more kind of defensive contribution threat than someone like a Wirtz. Similar with Salah, I just want to see how Liverpool are going to set up. I do feel like Wirtz will play the 10, but who kind of knows with Arnie slot? And I might want to see how Liverpool kind of adjust to these new kind of attackers, and that's how I'm going for the safety of a Bruno. I know United might not be the safest team, they're pretty kind of hit or miss with terrible last season, but Bruno is always going to be quality. And with that threat of defensive contributions, I think that he might make up kind of for that value per million. Also, it does allow me if Bruno does get off to a very good start, have some United coverage, but their fixtures are a little bit hit or miss at the start of the season. Now where things might actually double down is I'm not even going for Verts, but I'm also replacing my third Liverpool asset, and I've actually gone for McAllister at 6.5. And this is literally down to those defensive contributions. McAllister has a very good average of that stat, and the thing I like about McAllister is he does get the odd attacking kind of threat, which I feel like makes him good value at 6.5. Originally I did a Declan Rice here, but his defensive numbers are lower than McAllister, and he might actually be playing more forward this Premier League season. But if you guys don't like your defensive kind of contribution midfielders, you could always go back to a Kudos or someone like an Ismail Assar. The last player though at 5.5 seems almost tempered amongst engaged managers, but still has a super low ownership, and that's Anderson from Nottingham Forest. Now he's one of the top players for defensive contributions, and because he played the majority of games last season, I feel like he should still be nailed for this season. Now my only slight concern is going to be, will Nottingham Forest perform as well as they did last season? Probably not, but I feel like they're still a quality squad. So at 5.5, not too much risk there, but it does kind of replace one of my more forward options. I do feel like he will be more consistent though. So this midfield 5 has had a shake-up. It's definitely less kind of attacking, if I can put it like that. I'm considering now these defensive contribution players, and that's because of that pricing mistakes video I dropped a few days ago. Now the last position, and as mentioned early on, this is my most unknown position at the moment. I just feel like the forwards aren't that great in this mid-range price bracket. I guess with Isaac's uncertainty, you can't even go for him, but I feel like if you can't afford an Ollie Watkins, you have to go for this cheaper bracket, starting off with Dom Solanke at 7.5. Now before you guys question this, if you saw my pricing mistakes video, you'll know that Dom Solanke's points per minute aren't that great. This is more of a kind of potential play. So I just saw this week that the MLS is trying to sign Heung-min Son. If he does leave, it does almost make Dom Solanke as the most prominent forward, and definitely the primary penalty taker. Now is that worth kind of going for a Spurs attacker when Spurs aren't great? I don't kind of know, but I feel like with the fixtures, it's worth the punt. Now if you guys don't like Dom Solanke, I don't even know if I'll be going for him, but another player like a João Pedro at 7.5 could be there. I do have some concerns though about all those strikers that Chelsea have at the moment. So I kind of feel like João Pedro might be a 70-minute player. Yes, you could get attacking returns there, but you probably want someone a bit more nailed. I do feel like he's a good player to start the season off with, but might be a transfer waiting to happen. Now let's just see how the preseason does go on. If João Pedro is definitely the main striker, I could still be tempted, as that Chelsea double up with those fixtures can't be too bad. Now without João Pedro in the forward department, I can't afford a Jared Bowen at the moment. That only leaves one option, and yes, I've gone for Evan Nielsen. The Bournemouth striker I do expect to have a great season. Now the reason you haven't seen Evan Nielsen is probably because they do have Liverpool in game week 1, which I do agree is a terrible fixture, but after that the Bournemouth fixtures are pretty decent. Now yes, he might not be on penalties, Kluivert might still be on them, but I still expect Bournemouth to have a very good season considering the form they had last season. I almost feel like they might be the only team that really had a kickoff season that continues it. So definitely more of a punt play here, but I do feel like his ownership is low because of that Liverpool game. So I'm trying to not be too one game week minded to start the season with. I guess with 5 free transfers potentially that you can stack, I can be more adventurous. And that might mean going for João Pedro to start the season with, and then switching to Evan Nielsen when the time is right. But you guys let me know, definitely more conservative here, more DEFCON focused, 100%. But I do like the overall structure of this squad. You guys let me know what your latest draft is looking like in the comments down below, and as mentioned, anywhere that you guys would spend the 0.5, I was struggling quite a bit. Maybe going for someone like a Jared Bowen instead of a Dom Solanke, then downgrading him later in the season, as West Ham do have Sunderland in game week 1. Also let me know your take on these defensive contributions. Are we overrating this new rule? Or like me, do you guys have a few players that have that defensive contribution potential? Make sure that you guys have the notifications on for all the videos coming up this preseason. Still tons of content still to drop. This is basically our video guys. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Please don't forget to like and subscribe if you have subscribed yet. Make sure that those notifications as mentioned are turned on. Tons of content still to come. But for the time being, I'm signing off. It's been Dayvy FPL and I'm out. Cheers, bye.